You're listening to the Governor's Podcast, which is hosted by school governors, for school governors, and for all involved in or impacted by education governance. On the Governor's Podcast, we have open, honest, and transparent discussions about governance in the UK education sector, sharing and providing insights into the realities of entering the boardroom, sitting around the governing board table, and leaning in.
Hello, I'm Sharon Warmington and I support schools and academies as a governor, governance practitioner and a clerk. I'm also the founder of the National Black Governors Network, supporting the education sector in diversifying their governing boards.
And it's Olivia D. Hind here, an under 30, unapologetically black female who is changing the face and space of school governance.
And you're listening to the Governor's Podcast. Okay, let's get into today's topic.
So we're going to talk about diversity. We've been on this podcast journey for about a year now. Yeah. And I believe our very first episode was about being the only one in the room in a very wider context. Now, a year later, I'm thinking, let's dig a little bit deeper. So what do you think is really meant by having diverse governors? Because that's a term I hear thrown around a lot now. Yeah. So I want to know what your take is on that, and maybe that's something we can unpick over the next few episodes.
Definitely will need to unpick it, because diversity, I think it depends on the angle you're coming in from.
Yes, of course.
You can look at the Equalities Act and the 9 protected characteristics and look at each one of those individually. When I hear the word diversity, and as you know, I train on this specific area for governing boards, I can only speak from my lived experience.
100%.
So that's first and foremost. So I will always speak based on my experience as a Black British woman born and bred in this country, of what my journey has been like and how I've navigated that landscape.
You're setting the scene. You set the scene from which you speak from.
Yes. Yeah. I am often asked to speak more widely on diversity, and I don't, because I don't want to do a disservice to the other protected characteristics that I'm not.
You haven't experienced, of course.
I don't have that experience, so I can't speak to it. I can speak about what it's like to be marginalised. I can speak about what it means to be discriminated against in a wider context. But in terms of a lived experience and what it means for Black people, then I can speak to that. I can't speak as a Southeast Asian, South Asian, as a disabled person, as a transgender person. I can't speak to those other groups. So therefore, I have to. I stay in my lane.
I hear you.
I stay in my lane, and I was speaking recently at an event when this same topic came up about being inclusive of everybody, and my response was, in summary, we have to stop. This is again my opinion.
Yeah.
We have to stop trying to group everybody who is not white or not whatever into one.
Just lumping everyone together. Yeah.
And that's why I don't use the term BAME unless I'm referring to it, or BME, because it's just too, it doesn't give you a true picture of the individual groups within that category.
I hear you.
So I think, and it's not worked for us. you know,
because we still have an issue.
We still got issues.
We still have an issue.
Right, we're still talking about it. So it's
and there's still people who feel like they haven't been heard. Right. And it's because of this silencing, this group silencing, by saying, okay, we'll put all of you together and tackle it. We won't tackle any group specifically. And then everyone then just feels silenced within this crowded category, as it were.
Absolutely. So I personally feel that we've got to unpick those groups. So I'm very clear when people ask me to come and speak, that I speak from the position of race, increasingly about age, but that I think is because of my conversations with you, and watching your journey as a governor. But I do also fundamentally believe that once we start to look at diversity through the lens of race, which is the most sensitive subject because people get really touchy about it, and I personally don't understand why, because it's like, you know, we are where we are, and so unless we start to be honest and open and transparent in our realities of where we are, then it will be difficult for us to move forward. So we are where we are. Let's just get everything on the table and address things. As I say, we bring our difference to make a difference. Such
a powerful statement. It's so important.
People will come with their differences. Accept that they are different. Otherwise, it would still remain the same.
Exactly. And you don't want
different color, and you don't
want the same. You don't want the same, because in sameness, if that's even a word, there's no change, there's no progression, there's no innovation, there's no movement forward, there's no thinking about the next, or even thinking about the now, because it's not just about trying to think of the future. The future is unknown to absolutely everyone. You create it in your present day actions, in your present day thoughts, in your present day reactions to things, in your present day learning, in your present day, activities. And that is what then kind of creates the future, because it's based on the interactions you have now, which almost plant the seeds for what you're going to reap later on down the line. So just everything that you said.
Yes.
And with the intensity of the last couple of years, for various reasons, which we do not need to use the buzzwords for to kind of know what the last 3 years have been about. If we started with the protected characteristic of race, seeing as though there's so many different aspects to diversity that we could talk about and will talk about. But if we start from race, just both of us being Black women, what would you say are things that strategic boards and governing bodies in education must consider, should consider, and could consider? You know exactly why I phrased it that way, because I've attended so many of your trainings.
The musts, the shoulds, and the coulds.
Yes. If you were to pick one or two for each one, just as a starting point, if I'm just thinking of anyone listening who is not only new to the space, but probably more those who are experienced in the space and feel the confidence. I say experience, not because I feel like new people cannot introduce these questions, but maybe it's a confidence thing. For those who are confident enough to bring this to their governing boards and governing bodies, what could they use as a starting point?
Okay. The first thing I'm going to do is sort of make your question a bit stronger. And instead of saying what they must, should, or could consider, I'm going to say what they must, should, and could do.
Do it.
Because I think we are so far past
thinking
consideration. You're so far past that. First of all, I must credit the must, should, and could to Dr. Carl George.
Yeah, there you go. The genesis of the idea.
That's where it originated from, when he created the Race Equality Code.
Okay, yeah. We will We will put the link to that in the description of this episode.
It's a free downloadable code that literally outlines what governing boards must, should, and could do towards race equality. So, but in my humble opinion,
go on.
And once you understand that out of the 32,770 schools in the UK,
wow,
and the approximately 300,000 governors and trustees in those schools.
Did you say 300,000?
Yes.
300,000?
Yeah, it's the biggest volunteer group in the UK.
I knew that bit, but I didn't know. Yeah, that's nearly 500,000.
Yeah, 300,000 volunteers across the sector. So bearing those two figures in mind, less than 1% of the governors and trustees in those schools are from Black British, Black African Caribbean backgrounds, heritage or ancestry.
Seriously?
Yes, less than 1%. So
I didn't even know this. Oh, I'm learning. Anyone listening, know that I'm learning too.
As a Black female. Yes. So there is much work to be done.
That's an understatement now that I know that figure. I mean, it's not just about the numbers, but the numbers don't lie. And now you can kind of see it when you walk into a room and you're the only one.
But you only see it if you see it.
Yes, if your eyes are open.
Because you don't like a lot of the things that I talk about when I'm delivering my training.
True. Yeah.
It's like, I never thought about that. Like, I just, that's the feedback I get. It's so obvious, but it's only obvious if you see it.
When you open your eyes.
Yes.
Right, and you actually truly are seeing what's in front of you.
So when I say to people, when Black people come into the space, we see it.
Yes.
We see it for what it is.
And may I add, if we look like we've integrated very smoothly, that's because of everything that we are holding back.
Right, and we've
prepared ourselves to enter that space.
Yeah, I call it dialing back our Blackness.
Yeah.
And what we do is we go over and above
to make everyone else feel comfortable,
making other people feel comfortable in our presence, which is crazy when you think about it.
And it's not planned as such.
It's not taught.
Is it innate? Is that the word?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's instinctive.
It's just what we do. It's just what we are very conscious of entering white spaces. So the way in which I flip it, just so that the audience that I'm talking to can understand.
Yeah, of course.
Is imagine you're going to a conference in a hotel and you enter the space and it's full of Black people. And you are therefore in the minority in that space. Your first thought, I imagine, would be,
am I in the right room?
Am I in the right room? It wouldn't be, it's full in here. Am I going to get a seat?
No. It's like, hold on.
Yeah.
Did I attend the right event? Have I got the right date?
Have I got exactly all of those questions? Whereas for us, that's our norm all the time.
Can I even add to that? You know how you say, you use the example, and obviously it is an example, hypothetically speaking.
No, it's not hypothetical. That's my experience all the time.
No. I'm talking about the Black room. Yeah, the Black room. The room full of Black people. Yeah. And a non-Black person walking in, specifically a white person walking in and feeling to ask themselves, am I in the right room? If we look at it in the way that it usually is, where the room is full of white people and a Black person, just using, our race as the example, a Black person walking in, we don't necessarily walk in the room, or it's not, let me rephrase, it is not necessarily at the point at which we walk in the room that we ask ourselves the question of whether we're in the right room. We ask ourselves before we attend, should I go?
Should I go? Yes. Yeah, should I go?
Should I go? Who's going to be there?
Yeah.
Is this an event that is going to attract more white people, and therefore you mentally prepare for the fact, because you kind of know it's a given, I am likely to be one of the few. I mean, in our personal interactions, in our personal circles, we have a phrase, spot the black man, because it's a norm for us to not see us in volume.
Well, we're looking for ourselves. That's what we do. We're looking for ourselves. And so, you know, I remember being at a conference. It was an NGA conference, which are the biggest conferences I know in terms of the education space. I know there's like the Academy Show and the one at off events, but the NGA is the one that I attend most regularly when they're live. And year on year, I was the one or one of, and when I say a handful, in a room of 500 people, if there's less than 5, that's not even a handful.
No, it's really not.
And I remember going to one in Manchester, I think it was Manchester, and I found a seat, and somebody came and sat next to me, and then this black woman came and sat next to me, and then a third black person came in and came to that table, because the event hadn't started yet. And so I know where this is going. We were all sat there, and other people were joining their round tables of 10.
Yeah.
And then the person next to me sort of leaned over to me and says, "Oh, do you all know each other?"
Like, no.
But the assumption is that all black people know all black people.
And it's like, no, we don't.
And then she went, no, it's just because you're all sitting together. And
but so are all of you.
We sort of looked around the room and thought,
like, groups of people everywhere who are mingling.
There are white people sitting together. I don't understand your point.
Yeah.
But that is, and when I go back to when I say dialing back our blackness, in those situations, we sometimes we just want to scream.
Yeah.
Like, are you hearing what you're saying?
Are you hearing what you're really asking?
Yeah. But we don't. We dial it down, and we just smile and sort of explain and, you know, and laugh it off kind of thing. But not everybody will do that.
I know. And the thing I want to touch on following that example is thinking about the demographic of the student body, or even the staff in that school, and thinking of how that is represented at a strategic level. So if you think of these conferences, and if they are education or governance conferences, the people who are most likely attending are chairs, school governors, trustees, board members, etc., who are each linked to schools, academies, they're linked to academy trusts, and they are linked to colleges, etc. And we're thinking of this word minority. And sometimes I struggle with it personally, not even professionally, personally, because when I think of a school demographic and you're looking at the student body, and if you're telling me that just for round figures sake, 20% are from Asian backgrounds, and then you have another 20% that are from have black backgrounds, or black African, black Caribbean, black British, or black other, and then you have 5% from here, and 1% from here, and another 18% from here, and say 20% are white British. How do you really use the term minority when you're speaking about someone from a non-white background? When it's very misleading.
Yes.
And I would say it's actually, I mean, I'm very much someone who advocates for understanding the context of the school, especially when you're thinking about the decisions that schools are making. One school cannot make the same decisions as another, because they've got to think of within the context of what they're dealing with. So how is it okay to use a societal context word of minority in a school context of which non-white isn't the minority, it's the majority. If you're truly looking at the context of your school, minority in the student body, you've got to be very careful about how you use it. Right. Because if 50% of that school is non-white, believe me, Black, Asian are not the minority in that school.
Right. Okay. Here's how I would respond to that.
Okay.
And going back to your must, should, and could.
Yes.
The first thing that schools must do is be honest about their reality.
Thank you.
At a local level.
Yeah.
They must be honest about their reality.
Yes.
So if you have no Black people at a governing board level, own it.
Yes.
You're not the only one. Own it. And the same issues that we have in the education sector, we have in every other sector as well. Yes. So let's just agree where we are.
No, it's so important.
With our reality. Don't try and deny it. Don't try and explain it. Just it is what it is. We have no Black people. We have no Black people. Right.
And I'm glad you started there. Before you move on to your next point, I'm glad you started there, because before you can address anything, you have to first acknowledge it.
Right. Exactly.
And the only way you can acknowledge it is to open your eyes and see it. So when you said own it, I was like, yes, I second this statement, because you can't address anything that you haven't first acknowledged.
Absolutely.
Yes. There we go. Brilliant.
Just own it. We are where we are. So you look at your reality at your strategic level. You look at your reality at a senior leadership level.
Yes.
And remember, it is the strategic level that recruit the senior level. So if you don't have the diversity at a strategic level, how are you going to get the diversity at a senior operational level? True. And that's head, deputy head, assistant head. Yes? When you look at your staffing body, what is the makeup and the diversity at a staffing level for your teachers and your middle leaders?
Can I also interject here about the staffing body for schools? It's not just saying across the whole staff, this is the percentage.
And that is,
it's what roles.
That's why I said teachers and middle leaders.
There you go. It's so in teachers, middle leaders, and your support staff.
Yes.
Because when you look at the staff as a whole, you say, okay, 10% of our staff are Black, but they are all support staff or admin, and none of them, or very few, sit in the teaching camp. That's also something to break down and look at.
Right.
Have to know.
So that's your reality. Be honest, take an audit, do whatever you've got to do.
An audit, a diversity audit.
Absolutely. I say to schools, and don't overcomplicate it. Just use the breakdown. Go on the .gov website, and just use the breakdown. White, British, Black, Caribbean, whatever the categories are there. Don't try. I saw one. Somebody sent me one to say, Sharon, is this okay? And I think they tried to get every single race or definition of race in. Oh, and I was like, it's too long.
Yeah. You want to keep it simple.
Keep it simple. Keep it simple. So just stick with the standard categorizations, because you're not looking for exact science.
No.
You're looking for an audit of where you're at.
Yes.
That's what you want.
And then you dig deeper. You just need a snapshot first, and then you dig deeper.
You need a snapshot, but you've got to know your starting point. You've got to know your starting point. So that's what they must do. And I would say, if they haven't done it yet, it must be on your agenda. Where are we? February, March time. So it must be on your agenda. This diversity item discussion must be on your agendas for at least, if not spring 2, then definitely summer 1. Right? Because it has to be a real discussion.
Has to be.
Right, and then you agree the way forward. You don't have to have a D&I link governor and all this kind of. You can do this, because all that is doing is just kicking it further down the road and giving it to somebody else to do the responsibility.
It needs to be integrated into the core structure, not something that sits on the periphery. It's integrated.
So that's what I would say. Firstly, that schools must do. Take a what is your reality? What is your current reality?
A diversity audit. I like that phrase, diversity audit.
And then from that audit, you can then agree what actions you are going to take based on your reality.
So these your shoulds.
These are still your musts.
Still in your musts. Okay.
Still in your musts.
Yeah.
So because a lot of people will get the data, but
they're not doing anything with it. True.
And sort of say, yeah, we've done that, and these are our statistics.
Or do it once and not do it again, not recognizing that things shift. Because you need to ask yourself, if you do it every 6 months or every year, then you'll know, okay, have we changed since the last audit? And if nothing's changed in a positive way,
it's got to go deeper than that. It's not even about the audit. It's about the actions out of the audit.
Yeah, but I mean, the next audit, if you want to see something different at the other end, you've got to do something about what you first captured.
I hear you, but I don't want people to get into this thing where they've got to do a yearly
reporting
audit, because then it becomes a tick box.
True.
Very much like how when we talked about the skills audit.
Yes. I feel you.
It has to be about the actions.
Yeah.
It has. That is where the focus has to be. Actions, because it's the actions that will pull you forward, not the audit itself. Knowing where you're at is just knowing where you're at.
That's just the starting point, but it's not the actual groundwork.
So those are my musts. You must know your reality, and you must know what actions you are going to take based on that reality.
Yeah.
My should is that schools, governing boards should understand that their culture within their school can shift and change, and it's dependent on who's in that space. For example, you will have an overall culture of the school. Yes. Within that, you will have the culture of the governing board. Whether it's a governing board that is they're high decision makers, they're fast moving, they have a strong focus and drive, they know what they're doing and where they want to take the school, and that could be based on where if the school is in measures or RI or something, or you could have a culture that's quite complacent. And
not much challenge,
not much challenge. Everything is just rubber stamping.
That sounds great. That sounds good. We agree. Yes.
Right. So you have to, and that is separate, because the reality is about diversity.
Yes.
The culture is about how we do things here.
Yeah. Ooh.
Yes. So you've got the culture of the whole school, the culture of the governing board, the culture of the senior leaders. The culture of the middle leaders, the culture of the departments, and the culture of the classrooms.
I'm so glad you've brought in the word culture, because there are schools, particularly when new leadership comes into play, there's a culture of we are loyal to the previous head, and therefore we don't want to change or move with the direction of this new head, which then stifles any growth in that school or any movement in that school, because you'll have a percentage of the staff who say, well, they don't necessarily explicitly say it, but in their inaction, they are resistant to change. And that's a cultural issue that needs to be sorted out. And it will impact, it will reflect the top, but it will impact the entire community and organization. So culture is so important to understand.
The culture is important, because what happens with a teacher can control and influence the culture of their classroom, which sits within a department. And then the department lead can influence the culture of the department.
Yes.
And then each department lead has their own culture within their own departments, and all of this is seeping through the overall culture of the school. And if that is not in harmony and in sync, it doesn't have to be the same, but there has to be a harmony.
Yeah, the keyword's harmony.
That it works all together. Otherwise, that affects the whole culture of the school and affects the learning of the students, which is ultimately why we're here.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, I totally hear that.
So that's something that governing boards should do, understand the culture of their schools.
Definitely.
Especially their themselves as a governing board.
Yes.
And then what governing boards could do is undertake, implement, arrange, sort out continuous education of diversity.
Yes.
So it's not just a, me and the Black History Month thing, and
I'm Black all the time.
I'm Black every month, not
every
just Black
day.
History Month.
I wake up like this.
So when I talk to schools and I say to them, if you are in a primary school, your children are Generation Alphas, which means they know nothing other than the digital space. And the digital space is already diverse. So even when I have people say to me, Sharon, we've got no Black children in our schools, so why do we have to have Black governors?
They're living in a diverse world.
My response is that their world is diverse.
Yes.
Children today only know home, school, and the rest of the world. They don't know, understand, or care about local, regional, national, international. They really don't care.
Yeah, it's true.
Because the world is coming at them through their devices. So they don't need to geography. I'm sorry, geography teachers, but geography is almost dead, as it were. There's no borders, but yes, you have the different countries and everything, but because of technology,
the connections are so much faster regardless of time and space.
Right. And when you're searching for, when you go on Google and you're searching for something, you don't know where it's coming from, and you hardly ever care where it's coming from.
That is so true.
Just want it for you now.
Is this information reaching me in this moment of need?
Right. You don't care where it's coming from. You just know that I need this information now. And so that's what the Generation Alpha is like. They are also in year 7, and then the rest of the school in secondary school and into colleges and unis is Gen Z. Generation Z. Generation Z is the most racially diverse generation ever. They are either of mixed heritage, they are either in relationships with mixed heritage people, or they are either connected in their friendship groups with me. So even white Gen Zs are diverse, because they think beyond borders and barriers.
Yes, of course.
So that is why and that will be our next topic, the diversity of age. That is why we need to get more young governors around the governing board table, because you will bring in your diversity. But going back to what schools could do in terms of education, if you are struggling, because there are rural schools, and let's face it, we Black people aren't in the country, in the countryside, rural areas in numbers like that.
That's too much risk factor for us.
Yeah, we watch films like Get Out and that.
Okay, before we digress.
So yeah, I understand that especially in the rural areas, finding diversity is difficult.
It's harder, it's challenging.
I get that. And this is why you've got to have the conversations about your reality and about what actions you're going to take, because one of the actions could be that you decide for at least 12 months you're going to hold virtual meetings until you establish more diversity so that you can lower the location barriers and get people on board.
Oh, I get you. Yeah, I understand that as a strategy. That makes sense. You're thinking of the way to bring diversity in could be changing the way in which
you've got to make it. You've got to look at where the barriers are.
Yes.
And one of the things I posted recently on my LinkedIn was we have to stop saying we're looking for the right people.
Yes.
Because right people is subjective. Who determines what the right people are?
And it's when it's used, it's saying, it's attending diversity training, saying, yes, we want to diversify, but we need to make sure that they're the right person. Almost as if by diversifying, you're not going to get the caliber or the quality that you require in your school. And it's like, be careful with that alignment of that language and the use of words.
Yeah, because the perception is that by widening diversity, you're lowering the bar.
And it's like, no,
you're not.
Don't come with that.
No, absolutely not. And that's why it then goes back to your education. Because when I say to people, you're not lowering the bar. If you need somebody with a legal background, go to the Society of Black Lawyers. You're going to get somebody with a legal background. You're going to get somebody of color, and you don't have to have the conversation about either one.
Yeah.
And most people don't even know that these networks exist. And it goes back again to when I said, we are not in your spaces. You have to come to ours. Yeah. If I want to network with white people, I have to go into white spaces.
That's so true.
Because I network with Black people because that's just where my network is. I know the Society of Black Lawyers. I know that the National Association of Black Police, the Black Cyclist Network.
So if you want something different, you have to go outside your comfort zone.
Got to go where they're at.
Yeah.
Just like, and again, I was talking to somebody yesterday, I think it was the chair of governors, and just explaining it in terms of like supermarkets. You go up where I live, there are two big supermarkets, Tesco's supermarkets, that are each about 5 to 7 minutes distance from my home in two different directions. One is in an area where the community is predominantly Indian, Asian, Black heritage. I can go into there and buy more, what do they call them? World foods?
Yes, yes.
Right? I can go into that Tesco and know that I'm going to get my curry powder in the big bags, or my rice in the big bag.
Certain brands, certain quantities,
right.
Certain spices,
Okay. But when I'm ready for my olive bread, or when you used to buy your antipasties, we had to go to the Tesco's in Sutton.
Yeah.
Which, if you're familiar with Birmingham, you'll know that Sutton Coldfield is a more affluent area,
or more. It's got a higher white population as well. I don't want to just say affluent, because there are neighborhoods or areas around the world where the affluent population is still Black.
It's more white. So you're not going to find the big bags of rice in Sutton.
The world food aisle is not that big.
It's more big.
Yeah, exactly. But it depends on what you want. You go where you're going to find what you require.
Exactly. So going back to, if you want diversity, truly want diversity, you have to go where those people, those diverse groups operate from, where they are. Because
that you will find the same variety of quality. You were saying find the same variety of career paths, the same variety of expertise in those other cultures, in those other races.
Absolutely.
You have just got to be willing to take that step.
Yes.
Make that move.
They're not going. We're not going to just
come to you.
We're not just going to come to you. It just doesn't work like that. It really, really doesn't work like that.
Because if you go back to the example you used earlier about there being a room full of white people and a black person walk in, that is usually what it is. The reason why we're not just going to come, not all of us, because there's other people like us who are willing to be the only one in the room. But for many of us, it's hard. It's draining emotionally and mentally. It takes its toll to think, I'm going to enter a space where I'm going to be looked at as the only one. That's not easy for everyone or for anyone. So we're not just going to come to you. We have to feel wanted. You want to feel wanted. You want to feel valued in a space. And so if you come to us, it's very different to you expecting us to come to you to then tick a box for you. And then it's like, why am I really here? Do you really see me? Are you really making use of my skill set? Or is it because of what I give you, which is to say that we're diverse now.
Yes.
We're diverse now.
And we see that. We see it a mile off. We absolutely see it a mile off. So, it's important that, again, going back to that honesty and transparency. So instead of going to a group and saying, we want to be more diverse, you go to the group and say, we're looking for a lawyer, or we're looking for somebody with a legal background.
There you go.
But the mere fact that you're in that space means you're going to get somebody of color.
There you go.
Because that's what we are more than our color. We are more than our race.
So much more.
And so
much more.
Absolutely.
That is, if anything, that's by default. Like this is why when I'm a part of training sessions, and the assumption could be that I'm in a space because I wanted to bring the race diversity as being a black woman. But I make it very clear that for the story that I write about myself, my reason for being in that space is about age and changing the age dynamic of that space. Hence why we've got to do a whole nother episode on age, the diversity of age or age diversity. But it's recognizing that I am black by default. So you'll get that as well. But so I have my own reasons for coming into the space, but you'll get everything that I am because I am me. I am me in each space that I'm in. So I am bringing the fact that I'm a black woman. So I have a black perspective. I don't speak for all black people. Let's make that very, very clear. But I can give you a cultural perspective. That's why when I think I spoke about it in a previous episode, that's why when the uniform policy was revamped, that's why I got so excited, because I was seeing me and I was seeing my students all over it. And so that's why diversity is so important in all ways of diversity, in all different aspects or elements of diversity is important, because it shows that you are forward thinking.
Absolutely.
And you are moving in the present day. Because if you stand still, believe me, you're not just standing still, you're actually moving backwards.
You can't,
because
stand still.
Everyone else is moving forward.
You can't
stand still.
I remember delivering a session once, and people were saying, but it's really hard to change. And I go, is it really? I said,
it's a choice.
We've just come through 18 months of COVID, and we hated but got used to lockdowns. And so now if lockdown was going to happen again, we won't like it, but we've learned to navigate it. We know how to navigate it. Masks or no mask, we're not looking at people who wear masks or not wear masks in any way. We just accept it as this is our normal now.
Yes.
This is the way forward. In the 80s when Michael Jackson was wearing a mask, everyone thought he was a weirdo. And now, you see it. So we can change.
That means
do we want to?
And that's what I was literally just about to say. You will fall in one of two camps. You're either someone who leads change, or you're someone who change is forced upon, because change is going to happen regardless.
Absolutely. If we didn't accept change, we'd still be using fax machines.
We'll still be riding horses.
Yeah. You went that far.
Cars would not be around, because some people are still back there with them in terms of mindset.
Mentally,
yeah, people are still back there thinking, I'm not going to change, I'm not going to change. And I'm not saying you change for everything all the time.
No.
You're still authentic to yourself.
Well, progress is progress.
Yes, exactly. It's about that evolution. You're evolving, you're moving, especially because we've spoken about how regularly new blood, new life is coming into those school buildings every single year. Change is happening anyway.
Absolutely.
So it's what type of change you want to be a part of. Do you want to be a part of the type of change where you don't change at all and you're an example of being stagnant, or is it moving with the times, moving as is necessary, moving to better serve your students and your school community?
It's more basic than that. We get older.
There's that too.
You can't say I don't want to be 40, I don't want to be 50, or I don't want to be 60.
Mm-hmm.
So
you actually can no longer say I don't want to be diverse.
Yeah, you can't say that anymore. You can't, unless you're planning to live on Mars or something, you can't say I don't want to be diverse. And believe me, there are people out there who
stand by that.
By that. And it's also for those in the governing space, recognizing who amongst them are the ones who will challenge and fight against diversity. They're small in number, but they are there. But you've got to make sure that for the majority of your governing board, you are moving in the right direction, which is serving the students of your schools.
Yeah, of course. That's what you're there for at the end of the day. So takeaways then. What would you say your takeaway is from this episode, us kickstarting a mini diversity series, it seems like? So it could be 2 or 3 episodes that come along, and we'll no doubt talk about it further on down the line in the context of another topic that we may have at that time. But what would you say your takeaways are from this conversation?
For me, I think it's what I'm giving to all governing boards that I speak to on any platform. The word race and how I break it down.
Okay.
The R for realities. What is your current reality? The A for actions. What actions are you taking based on that reality? The C for culture, understanding what your culture is and the necessary things that you need to do to make sure that it's positive and moving forward. And the E, continually educating yourself individually and collectively in relation to diversity right across the protected characteristics.
No, that's a solid point. And I think my takeaway would be on the back of that last one, that education, seeing as though we are in the sector of education. And as you've said before, education is the one sector that everyone passes through at some point or touches base with at some point. Even if you're homeschooled, you are still experiencing an element of the education sector that exists. And so for me, even though we didn't specifically talk about it in this episode, but I'm sure we will at some point, with me having the role as the diversity, inclusion and equality, or diversity, equality, or equality, diversity and inclusion lead governor. What order do you say them in? Sometimes it's DEI, sometimes it's EDI. So as that governor, what can I continue to do or offer or suggest in terms of that continuous education of every governor, of every person in that school community or organization, to make sure that it isn't just a title that I have, to make sure that it isn't just a tick box exercise that the school has in operation, but actually the blood, it's flowing through the organization. It's actually something that is a part of the core structure. So it's thinking about that. And what I will add to that is recently I was asked the question, if with my role as the Equality, Diversity, Inclusion Link Governor, do I have a role description? And I will be honest, the answer was no. I don't believe one exists. And so me and yourself, we're actually we're actually creating one so that you don't just have a safeguarding link governor and you don't just have a send link governor for which those are mandatory and you have role descriptions, but you start to recognize the importance of having an EDI link governor, not just to say, yeah, we're taking care of it in that corner over there, but to show that it's an integral part of your governance performance, your governance practice. So that would be my takeaway. My takeaways always seem to have an action for me to do, like a piece of homework for me to it's like a very reflective, and it's like, now I need to go do something. I got an email to send. But yeah, so diversity, let's do it. Let's have that mini series and talk about different perspectives and different angles. It's important.
Absolutely. Thanks for listening to today's episode. Please rate, review, and subscribe via your preferred streaming platform. The Governor's Podcast is a brand of the legal entity Education Governance Solutions Limited and a free training resource for anyone. So if you know someone who is interested in becoming a governor or a trustee, please share this podcast with them. And if you'd like to get in touch with us directly with questions or comments, then drop us an email at thegovernorspodcast@gmail.com.
You can also follow us on social media platforms at The Governor's Podcast. Let's connect.